Okay, hello folks. Today we are back with a video. We're doing a research video on the significance of the asteroid belt in our solar system. And we're also going to discuss about the sequencing or the ordering of the Vimshottari Dasha. Okay, Vimshottari is a 120-year Dasha system, which has been given by Parashar Rishi. And it's a very popular sequence of dashas to follow to understand your time periods. So today we are going to discuss about Jyotisha and also astronomy. So I have with me Dr. Aditya Togi. Thank you, Dr. Togi, for joining us. And he will be discussing more on the significance of the asteroid belt. But before we go to the asteroid belt, what I wanted to share with you folks is about our solar system. So let me share my screen. Okay. So this is our solar system. And you can see we have the sun at the far end, and we can see all the planets. And we have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn in the visible spectrum that you can see. And the asteroid belt is typically, it falls in between Mars and Jupiter. So Dr. Togi, tell us more about, what is the significance of asteroid belt and what are your observations from an astronomical perspective, and maybe then correlating that with an astrological explanation of, what we can see from the asteroid belt. So over to you. So I can stop sharing my screen.
Okay, great, Dr. Pai. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me once again on your channel. And it's very significant about asteroid belt. There are a lot of theories about why do we have asteroids in between Mars and Jupiter, between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter. First of all, let me tell you what is an asteroid. Asteroids are nothing but chunks of rocks. These rocks can be ranging from few meter size to few kilometers in diameter. Of course, they can be of any shape. It may not be a perfectly circular or spherical shape. It can be elongated shape. It can be different shape, but different chunks of rocks, smaller rocks in between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter and going around the sun. Just as planets go around the sun, these asteroids who are in the form of rocks, they are also lying between Mars and Jupiter, and they also revolve around the sun. Same as planets, but like a broken planets, you can say. So there is a theory like why we have it's a very surprising that why do we have an asteroid belt in between Mars and Jupiter? Why not at other places in the solar system? And when I say Mars and Jupiter, does something click in you? Because of Jupiter, can you think of something?
Yeah, Jupiter is a huge planet, and I think because of its gravitational force, you can probably think about, it having it very close to that. That would be the first thought that will come to my mind.
Correct, exactly. That was what some astronomers think, that there would have been a planet between Mars and Jupiter. And because Jupiter is a very large planet, very high gravitational pull, because of the gravitational pull of Jupiter, this planet, whichever was in between Mars and Jupiter, would have broken down into pieces. And that planetary pieces are going around the orbit of Mars and Jupiter. That's one theory put by astronomers. Okay, we don't know for sure what it is, why it is, but interestingly, there is a many astronomers would know there is a Titius-Bode's law, and it's a very significant law, and it will tell you that planets are not placed in position with respect to sun wherever they are wherever they are. There is some mathematical formula where these planets are from the position of sun. Okay, so I will just share my screen. So you have to give me the permission to share the screen. And let me know once you have given me the permission. Okay.
I've made you the host, so you can share your screen now.
Okay. Okay, I think you can see the screen here. So this is Titius-Bode's law, and it's given by 0.3 times 2 raised to n plus 0.4. Now I will tell you what is this. So let's say if n is minus infinity, okay, if n is minus infinity, then you get 0.3 times 2 raised to minus infinity plus 0.4, and any number raised to minus infinity is 0, we know that. So 0.3 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus zero point 0.4 is nothing but 0.4. So at zero point 0.4 astronomical unit, there is a planet called Mercury there from the sun. Okay. Now if n equals 1, 0, 0.3 times 2 raised to 0 plus 0.4, 2 raised to 0 is 1. So 0.3 times 1 is 0.3, and then plus 0.4 is 0.7. At 0.7 AU, there is a planet Venus from the sun. Similarly, when you put n equals to 1, what will happen? 0.3 times 2 raised to 1 plus 0.4. 2 raised to 1 is 2, so 0.3 times 2 plus 0.4. 0.6 plus zero point 0.4 is 1 AU. What is there at 1 AU? Earth. So like that, if you go, if n is 2, you will get the distance of mass from the sun. If n is 3, you get a distance of 2.8 AU, where we don't see a planet, but we see an asteroid belt there. Similarly, when n is 4, you have Jupiter. Where n is 5, you do the calculation, you will have Saturn. N is 6, distance comes from Uranus, and so on and so forth. And when it is Neptune, Pluto, and n is 8, of course, Neptune and Pluto are contradictory, like their orbits intersect each other. So it's very difficult to say what is Neptune, what is Pluto. Sometimes they say that Pluto is the nearest to Neptune for 20 years. Of course, Pluto is not a planet, but Pluto actually is sometimes near than Neptune because their orbits intersect. So after Neptune, Pluto, their orbits are very different, but you still see that at n equals 7, there are planets Neptune and Pluto, and n equals to 8, there is an Eris. Eris is nothing but another body which is in the Kuiper belt object, which is beyond Pluto, all that solid chunk icy rocks. But anyway, what is the thing? What I want to show you is the planets, whatever planets are, they are not placed anywhere they like. Okay, they are placed at certain distance, 0.4. Mercury was not at 0.2, Mercury was not at 0.3, Mercury was not at 0.5, it was at 0.4. Similarly, Venus was not at 0.6 or 0.5 or 0.8 or 0.9. Okay, so that means there is some mathematical formula. So I don't know who designed this formula, but there is some mathematical formula that these planets are put into. Okay, anyway, so far so good. But another thing which I really see, so that's but it's interesting that when n is 3, we don't see any planet, but instead of that, we see the asteroid belt there at that distance. So that's surprising. So that, I guess, that would have been a planet there before, when it was solar system was forming. And because of the Jupiter gravitational pull, when a solar system forms, there are a lot of turbulence in the gas and in the dust particles, and probably something would have happened, happened to that planet and would have broken down into pieces, or maybe the chunks rocks would not have come together in the first place itself, and then they would be just floating down because of this pull of Jupiter, or there would have been planet and then broken down. That also can be possible. Somehow some things maybe Jupiter would have not done or would not have helped to form a planet because of the gravitational pull of Jupiter. That's what I think. So it's like if a planet is there broken down, so it's like now if you put Rahu, you can see there is a Vimshottari Dasha pattern you can see. Like for example, let's start with the first Dasha. The first Dasha is what in Vimshottari?
It starts from Ketu.
Starts from Ketu.
Or from
I will say start from Sun. Let's say start.
Okay.
I will say from Sun and Ketu. I will come to that. It's all circular, so it doesn't matter wherever you start. So here we have Earth. In astrology, Earth, now we are going to a different topic. Okay, now we have finished that asteroid. What is asteroid? Then I want to show the significance of that with respect to our Dasha systems. So let's say we start with Sun. Basically the Sun in astrology, everything is geocentric in astrology, correct? Because we consider Earth as a center and the Sun going around us. That's for Sun is also going around all the 12 signs. That's what we do in astrology. The Sun is connected to Earth. We don't have Earth in a chart, correct? In astrology, we don't have Earth. From Earth, you are seeing everything. Anyway, so we have to replace Earth by Sun in astrology. That's what happens. So let's say Sun, and what is Moon? Moon we know goes around the Earth, correct? The significance of Moon is it goes around the Earth. It revolves around the Earth. So Sun and Moon are two luminaries connected with Earth. So if you take Sun and Moon as the Earth instead of Earth, then Sun, then Moon. What comes after Moon Dasha?
Mars.
We have Mars. What comes after Mars?
Rahu.
Rahu. So the asteroid belt is like a Rahu belt. What comes after Rahu?
Jupiter.
What comes after Jupiter?
Saturn.
What comes after Saturn?
Mercury.
So you go back here. It's like a circle.
Yeah.
What comes after Mercury?
Ketu.
So Ketu is something in between Mercury and Venus. Okay. Now if we say in this pattern, if you put Ketu somewhere in between Mercury and Venus, then the entire Dasha then comes after Ketu Venus and then again Sun Moon. So if you put Venus somehow in between Mercury and Venus, then you see a Dasha pattern. Sun, Moon, Mars, Rahu, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, and then if there's Ketu here, and then there is Venus. So the Dasha pattern is basically put with the respect or in term of the distance of planet from the Sun. Don't you think so?
Yes, of course.
The Sun, Moon, Mars, and Rahu is like our asteroid belt, Jupiter, Saturn, and then it's going back Mercury. I think I should put Ketu here and then Venus. Ketu and then Venus. Maybe I should correct for that. And then, so there's a Dasha pattern seen with the distance of the planet from the Sun. So there's some pattern in the Vimshottari Dasha analysis. Let me start the slide. So there is some relation of the Dasha pattern seen from when you see the distance of the planet from the Sun. There's a positive correlation. Sun, Moon is basically Earth. After Earth comes the Mars. After Mars, if you consider Rahu as the asteroid belt, then there is Rahu, then there is Jupiter, then there is Saturn, and then there is Mercury, Ketu, and then Venus. Now I know you have an explanation for why we can put Mercury and Venus in between, or why we can put Ketu in between Mercury and Venus, correct? From astrological point of view. So I would like to disable my screen, and then you can explain astrologically why you have Ketu in terms of Mercury and.
If you can make me the host again, Dr. Togi. So I feel this was very fascinating. Just a couple of days ago, me and Dr. Thogi were sitting and we are discussing about the sequencing, and I've always been asking him a lot of questions about astronomy, and this discussion led us to this sort of an explanation that we wanted to come with to explain, how um, what is about this asteroid belt. Now, I was always very fascinated with the sequencing or the ordering of the Vimshottari Dasha. So, and from what he was trying to explain, I can really, for all those people who love astronomy and astrology, I can probably, give my spin on what I feel of how this sequencing could have come. So we have seen it astronomically, with the Tetius Bode's law, which explains this in a very good detail, and Dr. Togi has, put it beautifully and showing us, mathematically how this works. But let's go and see, what it means when we go to an astronomical um, explanation for this. Now, this was my first slide when I started. I was showing you our solar system. So we have the sun, which is pretty huge and big. We call it also as a graha, even though it is a star. It's the only source of light here. And we start with Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. So we will only go up to the Saturn because Uranus and Neptune we do not use in Vedic astrology or Jyotisha. Okay, these are outer planets. Okay, so what I've done is I have divided the outer planets and the inner planets with respect to the Earth. So if Earth, we're talking about a geocentric model where you see the Earth is at the middle. So what we consider as inner planet would be in the same sequence. The Sun is the first graha in Jyotisha. The second is Mercury. The third is Venus. So Sun, Mercury, and Venus, we consider them as inner planets. Okay, or the inner grahas, we say. And the outer grahas, which fall outside of Earth, would be Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So this is, this is what I wanted to show you from our solar system's perspective. Now, what I've done next is I have rearranged these in the order of the fastest moving graha to the slowest moving graha. The fastest moving planet to the slowest moving planet. So what I've done is the same combinations of the inner planets and the outer planets, or the inner grahas and the outer grahas, I've rearranged them. So the fastest moving graha that we have from these 7 visible grahas that we know of. So out of that we have Mercury is the fastest. Then we have Venus, which comes next. Then it is Sun. And from these 3 will form the fastest moving sequence from the inner planets. From the outer planets, we have Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Now, the caveat here is I've still not included or brought in Moon in this sequence. But if you consider Moon, then Moon will be the fastest. So let's go to the next one. So in this slide, what I've done is I have also included the Moon. So if you look at the sequence now, you see the fastest would be the Moon from the inner grahas, because Moon is very close to the Earth and it can be considered as an inner graha or an inner planet. So in this sequence, you can see Moon would be the fastest, then it's Mercury, then it's Venus, then it is Sun, because Sun is replacing the Earth. Okay, so we'll come to that a little later. So at least understand this whole sequencing is based off the fastest to the slowest. So we have the Saturn as the slowest and Moon as the fastest. And even if you go to the previous slide, this also follows a rule which is given in Bhagavad Gita by Lord Shri Krishna. He says, if you start with the youth is represented by Mercury. We are faster, we are like a Kumara or a young youth is also associated with Mercury. And old age is associated with Saturn. So you can see how he has said the contrast is from Mercury to Saturn is how we age. So the aging process in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also says, you are like a Mercury when you are born. Okay, you are you're fast, you're agile, you're growing, you're youthful, all of that. So Mercury is always associated as a planet with youth. And Saturn is a planet because it is slow and it shows old age. It is always associated with, old age. So you can see this thing basis of the motion or the movement of the planets. Okay, so after this, what I wanted to show you quickly is, let us look at the sequencing of our Vimshottari. Now we all know Vimshottari means, the Sanskrit word Vimshottari means 120 years. So we should typically, if you look, this is the sequence. We start with Mercury, and Mercury in Vimshottari has 17 years. Then we have, after Mercury, we have Ketu, which for 7 years. Then we have Venus for 20 years. Then we have Sun for 6 years. We have Moon for 10 years. Then Mars is 7, Rahu is 18, Jupiter is 16, and Saturn is 19. So this is the sequence. I've again overlaid the same thing that what we have been trying to follow in the same sequence. It's a circular sequence. So after Saturn, we again start with Mercury. So it is just showing you what is the inner grahas and the outer grahas and the years of the Vimshottari. So when you add all of these years that you have seen here, they should total up to 120 years. Now, we said we have seen this sequence before. We see very close to the Earth, we have the Mars. So what we said was we can replace the Earth in the Teachers Board's law. When Dr. Togi was explaining, he said we can replace the Earth with the Sun and the Moon, correct? So let's say the Earth is the center. So on one side, we have a male planet, which is Mars, and the other side, we're replacing that with the Sun. It is again following the same sequence that we have seen here. From the fastest moving to the slowest moving, you can see near Earth, we have Sun and we have Mars, and the same thing, we are going to place them together. Okay, so Sun is from the inner planet, inner graha, and one from the outer graha, which is Mars. The next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a female planet, which is Venus, from the inner graha. Again, they are following the same sequence of your fastest to the slowest, and one from the outer graha, which is Jupiter, which is usually considered as male. Then we have two neuter planets, neuter gender planets. So we have Mercury on one side, which is the inner graha, and on the other side, you have Saturn, which is a neuter. So if you can see the sequence, you can see this is again in the sequence of the fastest moving to the slowest moving, right? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add the Vimshottari Dasha. We know what is the Vimshottari Dasha. If we keep adding the Vimshottari Dasha, we'll see Mercury is for 17 years on the inner side. Then we have Venus. Venus is for 20 years and Sun is for 6 years. So when we add 6 plus 20 plus 17, it will give you a total of 43 years. And because Vimshottari is 120 years, 60 years is formed by the inner planets or the inner grahas, and 60 years should be the total which should be formed by the outer grahas. So when we see the balance here, 43 minus 60 would be 17 years. And look at what we see in the outer grahas. So we have Mars, which is 7 years, Jupiter 16 years, Saturn 19 years, that will total up to 42 years. So we have a balance, 60 years minus 42 years is 18 years. So we have this balance that we can very clearly see. On the outer planet side, we have a balance of 18 years. On the inner planet side, we have a balance of 17 years. Now, if you go back and reflect to what Dr. Togi said, we can replace the Earth with the Sun and the Moon because, they are very, very represents, the Earth. That's why you see all the eclipses are always a play between the Sun, Earth, and the Moon. Okay, so we can replace that. So what we have done is in the sequence, we have put Moon being a satellite of Earth and it's revolving around the Earth. We put it very close to the Earth. So in between the Sun and the earth, we have put the moon. We are so radically, we are saying we are replacing the earth with the sun and the moon. So here, if I have to complete the sequence, on the right hand side, what you can see, the balance of 17 years can be covered by putting a moon there in between the sun and earth, and putting a Ketu in between Venus and Mercury. Okay, now why Venus and Mercury? I'll come to that. Now let's look at the other side of the balance. The other side of the balance is 18 years. So we are aware that Rahu in Vimshottari Dasha, it's the Dasha sequence is in 18 years. So if I add Rahu in between Mars and Jupiter, which we said is the asteroid belt, which falls in between, which Dr. Togi was explaining, we completely fit into this whole sequence. And we know Rahu and Ketu are always diagonally opposite, which is at 180 degrees. So if Rahu is in between Mars and Jupiter, sequentially you have to have a Ketu, which is the balancing factor in between Mercury and Venus. So this actually completes our Vimshottari Dasha sequence that we always are looking for, and this order is exactly the same order that we saw initially when we began with our analysis. So this is what I wanted to show you, is when we go into a Vimshottari Dasha, we start with Mercury. As we said, it is the youth and it's the youngest planet, or it shows youth and vitality. And we end with Saturn, which is the older planet or the oldest. So it shows you the aging and it shows you the youth. So, and this sequence will keep following. So I hope, with this discussion, with what Dr. Togi has shown us through his, mathematical language of the universe. And it is very uncanny to even say that this can be, a coincidence. And Parashar Rishi, if he has to give you a sequence, he has really thought over it to give you the sequence. And what we strongly believe, the secret lies in the asteroid belt, because that is where originally, maybe where Rahu was there. The head was there, the head was broken into pieces, and it has created a tail, and the tail which runs around, the belt of, Mars and Jupiter, which it goes around the entire ecliptic. I would say that is like the Ketu, the tail, which leaves a mark across the thing. And if you really know the nakshatra, we talk about Shatabishak, which is again in Vimshottari Dasha is associated with Rahu. The symbolism there is a circle. So you can basically say this might be the circle of the truth, and there might have been a planet there. So this is just a point that we wanted to share with all of you. I know a lot of people would have various different theories to put forward, but Dr. Togi, any other words that you wanted to share on this theme that we have presented today, on the concept we have presented today?
Yes, I would say this is not the only theory. If you see in Dr. Andrew Foss's book, what is that? Planets, mantras, no? On mantras. I had the book.
Yogas. Planets and yogas.
Yoga of the planets. That too, he gives a description of the Vimshottari Mahadasha analysis. So there are different theories for Vimshottari. We are not saying this is the only theory or what, but and you can take, I think, several different theories can come in. But this is just one perspective of putting the significance of asteroid belt, why it has to be between Mars and Jupiter, and Rahu Dasha also comes between Mars and Jupiter. Yeah. And the distances of planets, how they are matching with distance of planet from the sun, how they are matching with the Vimshottari Dasha sequence. That was our point to put, and that's what we have done. But it's not necessary that this is the only theory. Many other theories may be plausible.
Yes. So, but it is very fascinating to see, this language of the universe kind of matching with astrology and Jyotisha. That was really what was fascinating. So we thought we should probably present this to all the audiences, and then the audiences can decide, there might be so many other theories that might be presented. Could be another theory that we just wanted to showcase to you people.
They can put comments people can put comments and we can see what are the other theories and all, so that we all will learn together. So feel free to comment and so that we can all learn together and all learn and grow.
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Thogi, this was really fascinating. It's always a pleasure to have you on my channel, Dr. Arjun Pai's Astrology channel, because this channel, what I want to say is a channel for free thinkers. Is just not restricted to what is written just in the scriptures. We also make an attempt to bring out, all this world of knowledge and information to you. But then again, it is just a theory, or it might just be a concept we wanted to show you. So thank you very much, Dr. Thogi, for your time. And we will have many such videos on astronomy and astrology. So thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
of you. Namaskar.